Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. Sunday nights, I wish I could say 8 o'clock, but we got a little bit delayed tonight. But there's a reason for it, and this explanation is going to be by way of a thanks to you all for your support. Our show is growing, and because of that growth, we were able to raise money in our GoFundMe campaign. So that's one of the things that got us a little delayed tonight, because you can't see it, but because of your generosity and of course your prayers, we're staring at a new monitor. We're talking into new microphones. Joe's over there, not on the screen right now, and I'm going to punch him in about 3 seconds, okay, on our new computer. And that's all because of you guys, because you think we have something to say, and we know that you think we have something to say because you've been supporting us, and we really appreciate it. So we had to work through a little bit. We're going across a number of different platforms tonight. We're on different pages and groups on Facebook and on YouTube. Remember, please like Joe and I on Facebook, follow our show, and share it with your friends on YouTube. Whether you're watching us in any of the groups that we're streaming right now, please subscribe to the front line with Joe and Joe. Hit the little bell. We have some great interviews up there. We did an interview last week with Dr. Edmund Mazza, but there's a ton of interviews. We have an interview coming up with Scott Hahn. We have an interview coming up with Ralph Martin. We're really making headway, and we're loving what we're doing. And like I said, that big diatribe I just went on was a long way of saying thank you to you all. Okay, don't forget to support also the Crusade channel. At crusadechannel.com. They have a free 30-day trial subscription. Mike Church runs a great operation. Joe and I are on there. Mike Church, Rick Barrett, Aaron Barker, David Simpson, brother Andre Marie. It's phenomenal, especially for Catholics, but you don't have to be just Catholic to really get into not just what we do, but what Mike Church does on the Crusade channel. So once again, thank you again. And a big shout out, Jonathan Ross at Holy Faith Media. That's helping us put all this together and producing our show. And it's only going to get better from here. Special thanks to him. And once again, special thanks to you. So we got a great show for you tonight. I mean, like we say all the time, I mean, this gets easy. It's almost like you want Joe Biden, or from our point of view, we want Joe Biden to get elected so we have enough red meat. But that's okay, because even if Trump gets elected, they're still going to be crazy, and they're still going to be serving Joe and I up some ribeyes. And we're going to be devouring those ribeyes, those lies, every Sunday night, on our social media program, on our podcast, and also on the radio. So tonight, just to give you a quick overview, you got Kanye West. I mean, I don't know. Is he watching the front line with Joe and Joe?
He should be.
He should be, okay? Kanye West may be watching the front line with Joe and Joe. Kanye says that if you want to build a strong America, guess what you got to build? Got to build some families, man. Strong America, strong families. That's how it works. But before we get into Kanye, and Joe wants to start and breaking that down, we got to talk about Amy Coney Barrett. The woman, listen, if the jury was out in my head about what she would be like, she showed me what real courage and poise, and what would you call it? Grace.
Oh, absolutely.
I would call it grace, in the face of the enemy. And yes, Dianne Feinstein and Blumenthal and Klobuchar and Dick Durbin and the rest, Cory Booker, Spartacus. Somebody explain to me why Cory Booker, every time, if he says his own name, He sounds like he looks like he's got this pained look on his face, okay? It's kind of like, Judge, could I? Shut up. You're from New Jersey. Toughen up a little bit. But she stared them right down. She stayed firm. She didn't let them abuse her by changing the rules that were established under Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elena Kagan. And she stood right there. And we're going to break down Amy Coney Barrett because to me, that woman has just become a hero of mine. I'll tell you that right now. And then we're going to talk about Kanye. Then we're going to also talk about the media again. Got to talk about the media. Got to hammer home the fact that the media is a bunch of liars. And as Donald J. Trump says, they are the enemy of the American people. We have a full-blown scandal. A full-blown scandal, and they don't want to cover it. Guess what? We're covering it. We're covering it at the front line with Joe and Joe. And then finally, if we have time, we're going to talk about some of the really, like Biden says, outlandish things. But Joe, in his title for this particular segment, said, here's a few more outlandish things that Joe Biden has said during his, what was that, the town hall meeting?
With
town
Stephanopoulos.
Stephanopoulos. So he got softballs. Donald Trump was getting 99-mile-an-hour fastballs, all right, and sliders and curves. And Stephanopoulos is like pitching underhand to Joe Biden. You got to pitch underhand to Joe Biden, or else it might seem like senior abuse. But anyway, thanks for joining us again. We're going to start the conversation right now.
Let's start things with Amy Coney Barrett and the confirmation hearings. A friend of ours, who we like to cover, is Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana.
Dude's funny.
Hysterical.
He's just funny.
You guys should definitely look into some of the clips on YouTube of John Kennedy. He's fantastic. This is what he had to say. He said, and I think this is a good place to begin the conversation. He said, I don't think our founders intended the United States Supreme Court to be a mini Congress. Our founders did not intend members of the Supreme Court to try to rewrite our statutes or the United States Constitution every Thursday. We have reached the point where one single federal judge in a limited venue can enjoy a federal statute or an executive order of the President of the United States for the entire country, and our founders never intended that. What he's talking about here is activist judges, and this is the main reason why we have to vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not the savior. I've said this time and time again. If he is elected, it's not like all of a sudden we're going to press a button and all our problems are going to be solved. Our problem, if you ask me, is we've thrown God out of our society. That's at the root of the problem. However, what does Donald Trump do for America? Donald Trump, the primary driver, what he does for America, in our view, is he gives us judges. And what he's talking about here, John Kennedy, is activist judges. Mm-hmm. Activist judges who are woke, who are basically interpreting the Constitution. They are not elected by the people. Yet you have judges, and it has happened. And this is why people like Amy Coney Barrett should be on the court. Why? Because she is an originalist. What is an originalist? She looks at how the Constitution is written and interprets it as it is written.
Right.
These are the type of judges we need. Not necessarily conservative judges. Ideally, I would like to see a judge that's a natural law judge. We probably don't really even have one of those. What I mean by...
I think we have two. We have Clarence Thomas and Alito.
He's as close
I think Clarence Thomas and Alito are as close as you're going to get to natural law judges
But she's an originalist, and what that means is she interprets the Constitution as it is written. And this is what we should want as citizens. Frankly, I don't think there's any other way to look at it. And that's what Kennedy is basically saying here. He's basically saying, listen, she is someone who's not here to rewrite the law. Mm-hmm. That's why we have to elect Donald Trump.
That's right. That's right. And they try to pass it off like if you are an originalist or you are a textualist. Okay, I think the distinction is originalist is how you interpret the Constitution. Its original meaning. And textualist applies to the laws passed by Congress. What did Congress mean when Congress passed this legislation? Now, when you look at it that way, that means 50 years later, Clayton versus Bostock comes to mind, which is a recent case, where Roberts and Gorsuch, changed the language of the Civil Rights Act. What was that, Title 10 or Title 7, Joe? Was it Title 10 or Title?
I don't recall.
I forgot which title it was, but where it says based on the discrimination based on sex, they expanded that. Now, here's the difference. They should not have done that. They both were wrong. Whereas an Amy Coney Barrett would have said, no, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, then you would be talking about discrimination based on sex, male and female. If you want to change that definition, the legislature has to do that, because that's not what they intended at the time. An activist judge, and I'm sorry, Gorsuch and Roberts were both acting like activist judges, along with the liberals, Ginsburg, who was alive when that decision was passed, Kagan and Breyer, basically took that plain meaning of the text in the statute, in this case, the Civil Rights Act, and they changed it, okay? When they're not supposed to change it. Where Amy Coney Barrett or Scalia or Thomas or Alito or Brett Kavanaugh would have said, no, that's a change in the law, and we don't change the law. You do over in the legislature. You do that. So, but here's my point and bring this up. What they do is they try to make it seem like their substantive due process and their different ways that they interpret the Constitution are the only valid way to interpret the Constitution. Why do they do that? Joe and I are going to say it one more time. Abortion. Abortion. An originalist and a textualist, okay? And somebody, and particularly somebody who agrees with the natural law, okay? Roe versus Wade is toast. See, Amy Coney Barrett is very slick, and I mean that in a positive way. She said, I'm going to faithfully uphold, interpret the Constitution, and I'm going to fulfill my oath. That doesn't mean that she's not overturning Roe versus Wade. That very simply means I'm going to follow the Constitution, which if you do, you're going to overturn Roe versus Wade, because it's a right that's not enumerated in the Constitution, which is then left for the states. Now, that's one argument, and believe me, we will take Roe. Joe and I, we are in the camp as abortion abolitionists that we think Roe versus Wade is a proper first step to abolishing abortion in America. If you want our real solution, and Joe alluded to it with natural law judges, a natural law judge would say, in the face of, let's say, challenges to Roe versus Wade, the right to life is explicitly protected in the United States Constitution. Therefore, abortion takes a life. Therefore, it is illegal. Now, see, that would be the ultimate goal. You're not going to find 5 justices that are going to do that, okay? You're just not. So what we'll take is Roe versus Wade overturned, goes back to the states. California, New York, our godforsaken state of New Jersey, are going to have abortion. Murphy just passed the law in New Jersey. It's going to be abortion on demand, just like New York, right up until the moment of birth. No doctors required, the whole 9 yards. Same as Cuomo. Murphy is Cuomo's lapdog, all right? New Jersey is New York's lapdog. But other states will ban abortion outright. Other states will severely restrict abortion outright. In which case, pro-life forces can then focus their attention on those places where, let's say, abortion would be legal. So I think it would be a very good first step, and I quite frankly think Amy Coney Barrett is going to vote to overturn Roe versus Wade when the opportunity arises.
Let's go to another John Kennedy quote. I think it's a good one. He says this. Now look, Judge, he's talking to Amy Coney Barrett, I'm not naive. I understand this thing can turn sour real fast. We all watched the hearings for Justice Kavanaugh. It was a freak show. It looked like the cantina bar out of Star Wars. And I know for someone unaccustomed to it that it hurts to be called a racist. I think it's one of the worst things one can call an American. This is what he said. He said, I know that it hurts to also be called a white colonist. And I know it must hurt for someone who has a deep Christian faith like yourself to be called a religious bigot. And to have it implied just because you are a devout Christian and that you're unfit for public service must be hurtful. This is all true. Now, let's break this down. What's he talking about with regard to racism? How is she a racist? And how is she a white colonist? She adopted 2 children from Haiti. There were some news feeds out there that basically implied that she was basically like doing that, almost like...
They basically called her a white supremacist.
Which is absurd.
That she adopted these kids out of an impulse of white supremacy. Not the fact that she's a disciple of Jesus Christ and a member of the church that he founded. And she and her husband made a decision, even it was in between their biological children. It's not like they had their children and then decided to adopt. They decided to adopt while they were having their own children. It had nothing to do with the fact that she wants to treat others as she would want to be treated, as we are commanded to by Jesus Christ.
But it also
but real quick, that wasn't her impulse. Her impulse is, I'm a white woman in America. You're a black child in Haiti. I'm going to adopt you because the only way you can have any shot at life is if I, a white woman, adopts you and brings you back to America.
Well,
that's what they were implying.
A black woman or a black family could adopt them too. It comes down to this. Those who've been given much, much is expected. Amy Coney Barrett and her husband are wealthy people, and they're gifted. She's brilliant. If she wasn't on the Supreme Court, she'd be a partner at a law firm in a big city in America making $2 million a year. That's what partners at major law firms, $1.5 million a year. She's a gifted woman. Her husband's an attorney too. So what are we doing? As Christians, those who've been given much, much is expected. She, actually, one of the children that she adopted was after the earthquake. She is the real deal. Mm-hmm. This woman is as sincere as it gets. Is she a saint? No, none of us are. But she is the real deal. She's been given a lot by God. She's been given many gifts, and she's using those gifts. How does she do that? She's helping somebody. She also has a child that has Down syndrome. A lot of people abort children who have Down syndrome.
Not her.
I had 4 children, and one of the tests you take, those who have had, their wife's pregnant, is that test. You know, going in, if the child has Down syndrome or not. Many people abort that child. She did not. She is a valid, real deal Christian, and they can't take it. Why is she be called a religious bigot? Obviously because she believes in marriage between one man and one woman.
Right.
That is why she is called a bigot, and I got news for you, good people out there. If Joe Biden wins the presidency, that is what they're going to call all people who believe in marriage.
Well, let's remember something. Let's remember what this whole, if anybody watched the hearings, okay, let's get straight. They showed full force what they're all about. Now, you guys got to think about this out there. Please think through this, okay? They defend as rights, fundamental, basic, super precedent rights, things that are not in the Constitution, okay? Abortion's not in the Constitution. Contraception's not in the Constitution. Gay marriage isn't in the Constitution. Transgenderism's not in the Constitution. They claim these things to be fundamental rights, immutable characteristics. Now, you know who doesn't like that? Black people don't like that, because black people don't like the fact that the Rainbow Mafia tries to equate their struggle for civil rights with the actual civil rights movement. See, being black, having dark skin, that's an immutable characteristic. That's the way you're born. Homosexuality is a choice. Regardless of your circumstances, it still is something that you don't have to do. It's not an immutable characteristic. Now, here's the point. They claim these things to be fundamental constitutional rights, yet they're nowhere to be found in the Constitution. But, your right to free expression of religion is enshrined in the First Amendment. And if I remember correctly, it's the first right of the First Amendment. That means I, as a Catholic, could say, I am not participating in anything that has to do with the rainbow agenda. That's number one. See, I have a right to that. They say no. Hate speech. Joe just said, you will be called a bigot and can lose your job because what you're speaking can be called hate speech. Again, freedom of speech is in the First Amendment. It's in the Constitution. Those same people would say that you don't have a right to free speech. And it goes on and on. Same with freedom of assembly. Okay? The same with the Second Amendment, where it clearly states the right of the people to keep and bear arms, okay? Which has always been historically known to mean that I have an individual right to keep and bear arms, okay? All those things that are in the Constitution, they tell you are not. And those things that are not in the Constitution, they tell you are bedrock, fundamental, long fought for civil rights. That's what you saw. That's what you saw on display. It's Orwellian. What's ignorance is truth, truth is ignorance, up is down, down is up. Everything is topsy-turvy. They will convince you that if you take the position that rights in the Constitution are protected, okay, you're a bigot, you're an extremist, you're just like Antonin Scalia, or you're just like Clarence Thomas, and you want black people to sit in the back of the bus and roll back civil rights in the 1960s. I know what I just said is ridiculous, but that's what they would say.
Let's juxtapose what John Kennedy put out there to what Chris Cuomo had to say. This is what he had to say. As we all know, he's a host on CNN.
He's a disgraziad.
That he is.
One more time. Hey, Basil, I know you're in the chat room. He's a disgraziad.
He stated the Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, is different. This is his words, not mine. Different than most Catholics. I think that her faith is by design more central to her value system and her behavior and thoughts than it would be for just an ordinary Catholic that doesn't belong to the People of Praise. For those who may not know, she belongs to a charismatic movement within the Catholic Church. It's called the People of Praise. This is obviously a valid movement. It's just her brand of Catholicism that she and her husband, go to. It's as authentic and it's blessed by the Church as it stands.
And my understanding is it's kind of ecumenical. They bring in other Christians from other, let's say, Protestant churches. So but to me, what I'm saying is like that doesn't make her an extremist. No. She's praying with, let's say, Methodists and Lutherans and people like that. So it's the opposite of an extremist. She's actually being.
I mean, I don't know about it, and I'm not here to get into like it's not valid, this that,
right.
And the other thing. All I do know is she is a Christian, and I look at her as a Christian, to be honest with you, by the fruit of her life, because it's there.
Some good fruit.
That it is. And
by the way, Joe, real quick, ordinary Catholic. What is it? What is it, Chris Cuomo? She's a Catholic who prays? So in that way, I guess you're right. She's not an ordinary Catholic because most Catholics in America don't pray. I mean, it's a shame. I'm not trying to be judgmental. Most Catholics in America don't pray or pray regularly. She prays regularly. So does that make her... So she's not an ordinary Catholic, which is Chris Cuomo speak and CNN speak for, she's not a Catholic that thinks like we do. At CNN, she's not a Catholic that thinks like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. Right, disgraziad Catholics, just like you and your brother and your father.
Well, I think it comes down to, as he said, and I'm using his words, he said her faith is more central to her value system. You see, sadly, that's what Catholicism is supposed to be. We're not supposed to just like, even if you do go to church actually is where you get fed, and then you go into the world. As the Mass ends, it says, go in peace to do what? To love and serve the Lord. How do we do that? By loving and serving each other. Outside, we take what we get, we're fed in Mass, the Holy Eucharist, and then we go into the world. You see, she actually espouses that in her life. She also, obviously, is fruitful. She has 7 children, 2 of which are adopted, who came from a very poor country. So she actually takes the teachings of Christ to heart and lives them. I got news for you, good people out there. That's who's going to heaven, by the way. People who put the teachings of Christ into practice. That's who gets to go to heaven. It's not tick the box, I prayed the rosary 65 times, and then go out and do bad things. That person doesn't go to heaven. The person who goes to heaven, who prays and does what God asks them to do. And the way I see it, I don't know her, but just by the way she is comporting herself, by the way she lives her life, by the family that she has, by the charity of her life, she is a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And she is living it. And that's what Cuomo's saying. He's saying she's different because her faith is central to her life, to her value system. That says so little about our country, and it says so little about our church. Every person who says that they're Christian, never mind Catholic, should be living their life as such. I got news for you. If we did, this country would be a better place. We would not have the problems that we have. Because that is the answer to our problems. It's not Donald Trump, people.
Right.
We have to change. America is on the wrong course. That's why we started this show 2 years ago, by the way. It's not to get Donald Trump elected. He's just a means to an end. America has to change. We need more people like Amy Coney Barrett.
Which is why they were attacking her. Listen, the whole formula, for those of you who didn't bother to see it, okay, that didn't watch the hearings, the formula was very simple. And by the way, it's very telling. It's telling what direction these people are going. Starts with the ACA. Don't think that they want to keep Obamacare or the remnants that are left of Obamacare in place because they care about people with pre-existing conditions. In Obamacare, you still have the persecution of those who do not want to provide abortions, abortifacients, contraception in their insurance plans, like the Little Sisters of the Poor. So that's their reason for wanting to keep Obamacare in place, okay? But then the formula was start with ACA, Obamacare, pivot from there to Roe versus Wade, and then pivot from there to Obergefell. Once in a while, one of the senators throws in guns. or once in a while, one of the senators throws in the Citizens United case. So they talk about Heller, they talk about Citizens United, but it is ACA, all right? It is Roe versus Wade and Casey, and it's Obergefell. I will tell you this. You want to talk about telling. You want to talk about the subtle anti-Catholic bigotry amongst the senators. Now, Joe and I would love it if all of a sudden the natural law jurists would come out of the woodwork, get on the Supreme Court, and declare that states have the right to outlaw contraception. That's not going to happen. We'll be long dead if that ever happens. Okay.
Happen in this country.
But Chris Coons from Delaware, Biden's successor. Okay. He brought up Griswold. He brought up Griswold versus Connecticut. That's a contraception case. See, that case right there laid the foundation for Roe versus Wade. See, it's telling that he would go after her on that and ask her, do you agree with Griswold? To which she frustrated him by saying, listen, I'm going to do what Elena Kagan did. I'm not going to give thumbs up or thumbs down on precedent, okay? And she really frustrated them with that answer. But why did he bring up contraception? Because she's Catholic. And these demons, these leftists, they know damn well that our problems are not abortion and gay marriage. The source of our problems are contraception and the contraceptive mentality and the sexual liberation movement of the 1960s. That's America's. When Joe talks about America has a sin problem, that is our primary sin problem right there. That is what's led to the destruction of America. We're going to talk about KANYE and families, the destruction of families in general and the black family in America in particular. That's your problem. Coons at least brought it up. All right, which I was kind of surprised. But that was his way of trying to zing her while people are watching. Say, oh, that's right, she's Catholic. She'll probably take away my contraception. Something along those lines.
All of which has nothing to do with the Constitution, by the way. Most of what they focused on has nothing to do with the Constitution. And that's what she basically tried to bring out. And frankly, I think she did a heck of a job.
I want to just go to one comment. Basil's in the chat room. He said, the reason Cuomo and the leftists are throwing a big fit about Barrett is because they know when Trump gets reelected. I like that, Basil. When Trump gets reelected, he's going to expose all the corruption. You know who did a really good job talking about Chris Cuomo? That's why I wanted to talk about Basil's comment. Ted Cruz. Okay, Ted Cruz did a really good job. And he looked at Chris Cuomo right in the face and he says, Donald Trump has broken you people. Now, that's CNN. He says he's broken you, and he's broken the media, and he's broken your network. So I just wanted to point that out because that's right. Donald Trump has exposed their corruption, okay? Ted Cruz pointed that out in this interview with Chris Cuomo, and you're right, Basil. When he gets reelected, he's going to continue to do so.
Let's go to the $1 million question, because obviously at the heart of a lot of this confirmation hearing is abortion. And our friend Dianne Feinstein went straight to that $1 million question. This is what she had to say. She basically alluded to the Antonin Scalia dissent in Planned Parenthood versus Casey when he said this. This is what he said in 1992. He said, "We believe that Roe was wrongly decided and that it can and should be overruled, consistent with our traditional approach to stare decisis and the constitutional cases." She said to Barrett, because Barrett clerked for Antonin Scalia, and she has said numerous times that he was a mentor of hers. Basically, she said, "Do you agree with Scalia's view that Roe was wrongly decided?" And this is what Barrett had to say. She said, "Senator, I completely understand why you're asking the question, but again, I can't pre-commit or say yes. I'm going in with some agenda because I'm not. I don't have an agenda. I have no agenda to overrule Casey. I have an agenda to stick to the rule of law and decide cases as they come." You see,
and sticking to the rule of law would mean, this is where I said she's too smart for them. If you stick to the rule of law, Casey gets overturned. But go ahead.
But hopefully. But, you know, like, the thing is this. A judge is not a legislator. You see, that's the proper understanding of civics. You see, she is a judge. I got news for you. If you're going in there with an agenda, you shouldn't take that job. Shouldn't take that job.
Well, even the fact that I didn't go to law school and I'm not in line to get nominated by Trump to the Supreme Court, but I would go in with an agenda. But I'm a political animal. See, that's the difference. Barrett is saying, see, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a political animal. Okay, so was Kagan, so was Breyer, so was Sotomayor. Okay, so was David Souter, so was Anthony Kennedy. They wanted to legislate from the bench. Okay, so they should have been politicians. They should have run for office.
Well, that's
they should, if they
correct.
want to do that. Sotomayor is on tape saying the court is where policy's made. Wrong.
Run for Senate.
Run for Senate. Run for Congress. Don't think that you're going to sit on the Supreme Court. You don't go in with an agenda. Here's my point. When you follow the law and you understand that the restrictions that you have as a judge, and in following the law, none of this leftist agenda in the last 50 years gets passed. None of it. Okay?
Now, as Joe said, she could view a case, because every case has different nuances, and that's what basically she was responding to that question. She said, I can't pre-commit because I don't know the facts. Now, facts could make you view the Constitution and say that Roe gets overturned based on the facts of a particular case. But that's a perfect explanation. She understands civics. I invite you all to look at a video that Ben Sass recently gave in the beginning comments of the confirmation hearing when he broke it down. And he broke it down incredibly well. In fact, it's on our Facebook page if you want to look at it. It's probably about 7 minutes. He basically says that's not the job of a judge. The judge gets the law. All the judge is supposed to do is to interpret it. What we're trying to get away from are just what Joe said. I don't want activist judges. I don't want you to be an activist. All I ask you to do is to look at the Constitution as it's written. And Amy Barrett, she said this. I love it. She said, it's not the law of Amy. It's the law of the American people. Correct again.
Right.
Amy Barrett.
And the difference is, it was the law of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It is the law of Sotomayor. It is the law of Kagan. They imposed their agenda by a twisted reasoning and a twisted legal reasoning. But that's not America. You see, if you do that, you don't have a constitution. And I just got done telling you a few minutes ago, you don't have a constitution when the rights that are in it, like speech and freedom of assembly and the freedom of religion, free expression of my religion, the right to keep and bear arms, you don't have a constitution when those rights are denied, yet they're stated right there in the First and Second Amendments. And then rights that never existed and don't exist, by the way, okay, are then imposed on us by activist judges. Well, then if that's the case, you don't have a constitution. You don't have a binding document. That's why we, at least before we get to the natural law judges, which we all wish we'd get to, okay, and they would probably all be Catholic, okay, and having studied extensively St. Thomas Aquinas, before we get to that, we'll take the originalists and the textualists, because at least they'll bring us back from the brink, which is what we really need in this country. And then maybe we can work to finally abolishing this godforsaking brutal practice known as abortion, what Joe and I like to call baby killing.
And like I said, that's where we're at. I do think, just to put a finer point on the conversation, I think she will be confirmed. I don't think they even touched her.
They've conceded.
I don't think they even touched her.
One analysis I heard, and I think it's spot on, because again, I watched most of the hearings, okay? They've conceded. They know she's going on the court. All they tried to do was land some punches against Donald Trump. They couldn't lay a hand on her because, listen, I'll put it like this to you. I haven't played poker in a long time. I would not want to play poker with Amy Coney Barrett. That woman's got a poker face that, I don't care, the best poker player in the world wouldn't be able to know what's going on. She was so straightforward. And they're using the word unflappable, so we'll use it. But she really was. They couldn't ruffle her feathers. Not even. There was one time, and that's because I think she was insulted, and I think it was rightfully so. She went back at Klobuchar and she said, "Are you suggesting that I don't have my own mind?" Did you catch that?
Yeah, I heard the clip.
Yeah, she said, "Are you suggesting that I don't have my own mind?" And Klobuchar had to back off. You see, she crossed the line. Coney Barrett let her have it, and she backed off. To your point, she's going on the court. Unless they turn around and they find some 8-year-old she supposedly molested, and they find that in the next 5 days and they make it up like they did with Christy Blasey Ford against Brett Kavanaugh, she's going on the Supreme Court.
And also, I don't think they can, because they, as the left usually does, they overplayed their hand when she was on the federal court. And that's why Feinstein really had to back off, because they crossed the line and they know it.
Right.
They know it. They could not bring up the religious test because they did breach that line. Frankly, she should have been, if you ask me, censured, like publicly.
She
She
should have.
really crossed the line. That should never, ever take place. In fact, one could even make the argument she should have resigned from the Senate by making such a statement.
Well, you see, to
because
Joe's
it's
point,
so bigoted.
that's in the Constitution. There will be no religious litmus test for any office. For any office, not just the Supreme Court or any other court. For any office. She violated the Constitution. To Joe's point, if you had some Republicans and some conservatives with some stones, they would have ruled, or they would have set a motion right away to say, we want her censured, or we want her to resign. We want to force her to resign, because you can't do that. Real quick, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. Please, if you're watching this on Facebook, like our page, follow us, share it with your friends, and anywhere you're seeing us on YouTube, please take the time later on to subscribe to the front line with Joe and Joe. Hit the little bell so you can see all our videos. We go live on Sunday nights, and we also have a whole bunch. We did a lot of interviews this year, and we think that you'll find them very, very interesting. I just want to give one quick comment. Judy P is in the chat room. She says, my Italian husband of 57 years believes but will not pray with me. So this Portuguese wife will keep praying for this wonderful husband. And we will too, Judy, because we all need to pray. Ultimately, the solution to all these problems is up top. Okay? We have to pray to God, to Jesus Christ, through his blessed mother. We have to pray, and God will help us. So we'll be praying for your Italian husband, because we're a couple of Italian guys. But anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. So where are we going next? So let's talk about what's going to save this country. And I want to preface this conversation with one thing, one statement. We are not a nation of individuals. We are not, nor are we supposed to be. We are a nation of families. That's what we want. Go ahead, Joe.
Kanye West had some interesting things to say, and believe it or not, I never thought I would say this, but I agree with this guy. This guy, what he's saying is spot on.
Let's hope he doesn't end up in the Passaic River.
I mean,
okay, because the left is vicious, and he's a guy with a lot of influence. Let's hope he survives.
Well, this is what he had to say. He said, we will build a stronger country by building stronger families. I want to go to a couple of his quotes. This is in a campaign ad. This is what he had to say.
Is he running for president?
He should be.
Is he officially running for president?
Well, he tried. I think to be honest with you, it could have been like a gimmick, because they know he was going to take some of the black vote away from Biden, and they kind of put the kibosh on it in a lot of states.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But I think it was a gimmick, because clearly he wasn't going to win. He was just there to take votes away.
Okay.
Anyway, let's stick to what he had to say. And to be honest with you, we should all pay attention, because what this guy's saying is spot on. He said this: America, what is America's destiny? What is best for our nation, our people? What is just? We have to think about all these things together as a people, to contemplate our future, to live up to our dream. We must have vision. We as a people will revive our nation's commitment to faith, to what our Constitution calls the free exercise of religion, including, of course, prayer. Through prayer, faith can be restored. We as a people are called to a greater purpose than ourselves, he continued. We are not only a beacon to the world, but we should be servants to each other, to encourage each other, to help each other, to lift up each other. This is right on. Mm-hmm. This is spot on. This is how you make America great, right there. And I'm going to tell you this. He goes on. He says, we will build a stronger country by building stronger families. He says, families are the building blocks of society, of nations. By turning to faith, we will be the kind of nation, the kind of people God intends us to be. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you had solid families in this country where you don't have 1 out of 2 people getting divorced, half our problems disappeared.
Absolutely.
You see all these kids who are rioting and doing all this craziness, I will bet you dollars to donuts, whether they're rich or poor, by the way, because some of them are rich. They came in, came out in some of the stories that a lot of them came from privileged backgrounds that are doing some of this damage. They have issues. They're wounded people.
Probably have daddy issues.
They have tons of issues.
Tons of issues.
I mean, you don't people who are basically healthy, and when I mean healthy, mentally healthy, you don't hurt people. You might disagree. You may start a podcast.
Okay.
You may put something on Facebook, but you're not going to go hurt people. You're not going to burn things. You're not going to do those type of things.
Think about what we have right now at this moment in history. Joe made a very good point, okay? I'm angry. Okay, I don't think that's a shock to anybody, okay? I'm angry. I get angry at the issues. I've been getting angry for the last 30 years of my life, maybe even longer than that. Started talking about Amy Coney Barrett. I remember getting angry about the way they treated Judge Bork. Okay, I was a little young for that. I got a taste of it. But then I was really angry when I saw how they treated Clarence Thomas. And then subsequent to that, kid gloves with Ginsburg and the others on the left. And then Sam Alito, they called him a racist, made his wife cry. I'm an angry guy. These people, let's assume they have righteous anger. Let's assume that. I don't believe that. I think they're a bunch of stone-cold Marxists who want the overthrow of our government and the overthrow of our society, and most importantly, the overthrow of the defeat of the Catholic Church in the world, okay? That's what I believe about them. But let's say they did have righteous anger. I'm an angry guy, and what did Joe and I do? 2 years ago, we said, you know what? Let's see if we get some people to listen to us. Because I want my anger to go out there because I think we got something to say. What's wrong with that? We have the technology. We started out the show by saying because of your generosity, we have all this beautiful equipment. So now we can get out to even a wider audience, okay? Notice, why is it that these people can't do the same thing? Because they have nothing to say. Don't you understand the point? They can't use social media other than to show them rioting in the streets because they don't have anything substantive to say. Nothing. And most of their problems is, I guarantee, if you did a study of these people, particularly BLM and Antifa, I guarantee you're going to find severe family issues. Severe family issues. And that's what Kanye is talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to this, too. You know, the family that prays together stays together. That's why marriage is a sacrament. We're Catholics. Marriage is a sacrament. God helps you in your marriage. You need God in your marriage. Listen, marriage is hard. You got a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of things going on. You got kids. You got finance issues. You got jobs. You got each other. Because we all have our hang-ups. None of us are perfect. You have to bear with each other. I mean, marriage is not easy. That's why God made it a sacrament. And when you live it sacramentally, he gives you grace. You see, that's where we have forgotten. We've forgotten it as a country.
Right.
Do you know, and this is not dogmatic, and I'm not going to preach on it, but I'm just going to give you some stats, because that's sometimes what I do. And here's the truth. 1 out of 2 marriages end in divorce. That's a fact. That's a fact. If you go to church, any church, this is factual, it's not dogmatic, any church, that gets cut in half. 20% of the people who go to church, a church on Sunday, get divorced. Cuts it in half. If you practice natural family planning, which means you space out your children naturally and you don't contracept, only 3% of those marriages end in divorce. Because God is the bedrock of the marriage. Mm-hmm. The family that prays together stays together because you take your vows seriously. Mm-hmm. You stand before God and you actually believe in what you're saying and you take them seriously and you know that there's no such thing as divorce. So therefore you don't put yourself in a situation whereby you are going to get divorced, and when you get married you know it's for life.
Right, and what is Kanye pointing out? He's pointing out what we've been pointing out in many people, okay? This destruction of the families. Why do we have to build strong families? Because they've been wrecked. Why can't everybody get that through their head? You got Roberts in the chat room talking about Logos Rising. We did an interview with E. Michael Jones, and we talked about his book. You can find that on our page at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, both on YouTube and Facebook, where we talked about his book, Logos Rising. What is the order, the natural order of things as far as society is concerned? It's not built on the individual. The Logos is family, father, mother, children. The children grow up. They meet people of the opposite sex. They get married and do the same thing. That is the Logos of the family. And in the meantime, everybody supports one another. These are the ties, the real ties that bind, okay, that you have. And even families with problems.
Well, not every
family's got problems. But even families with problems, in other words, real problems, okay, when you have the ties that bind, when you stick together, when you're praying together and doing all those things, you will get through it. That is what has been deliberately destroyed in this country from the middle of the 1960s till now, okay, and continues, by the way. Joe Biden, and we're going to get into it in a little bit, recently said that an 8-year-old boy could be an 8-year-old girl. You see, this is the anti-logos that Robert's talking about. Okay, that Robert's talking about in the chat room, that E. Michael Jones talking about. You have to recognize the order of things. A man-made order? No, a natural order. What is the natural order of society? What is its basic fundamental building block? The family. The family. And that is what has been wrecked in this country. In this country, again, according to E. Michael Jones, there was a point. There was a point where Catholics had some real power in this country. And why? Because they were centered in metropolitan areas, urban areas that were basically all Catholic, whether you're talking about Newark, Philadelphia, Chicago, Detroit, they were all Catholic, okay? And they all had big families. And you know what happens then? You get political power. Because you then elect representatives to the State House, you elect representatives to Washington, and you have real political power. He tells a story about Pennsylvania, about how Philadelphia was deliberately destroyed. When you look at Chicago, we grew up in Newark. Newark was deliberately destroyed by these same people. Why? Because of race? No. No, it had nothing to do with race. It had to do with the fact that there were strong families in those neighborhoods and in those areas that were predominantly Catholic that needed to get wrecked. And they've done a masterful job between contraception, pornography, abortion, the acceptance and the embracing of the rainbow agenda, now transgenderism. They've done a masterful job. And what has it all accomplished? The destruction of the American family. And here comes Kanye, basically getting on YouTube and everything else, going, why are we letting them tell us that we need to kill our babies? He said the words, kill our babies.
Yeah, he basically said,
he said, you have the quote?
He said over the summer, basically he said he was concerned over for the world that basically we don't cry. We should be crying about abortion. And he said basically that Planned Parenthood uses abortion as part of a black genocide project, and that such abortion mills have been placed inside cities by white supremacists to do the devil's work. If you notice this, a lot of Planned Parenthood, like their operation, it's in poor neighborhoods. They're not in fancy neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And he's 100% right.
Right.
He is 100% right. Do you know that more than half of the women, black women, babies that are born are aborted? In New York, I think it's 2 out of 3.
Right, 2 out of 3.
In New York City. So, I mean, he's not, this is him saying this. These aren't my words. This is Kanye West saying it. That's why what he's saying is, if you ask me, very dangerous to this platform. And he's a dangerous person to them because he is a black man who is woke to it.
That's right.
So this guy, basically, what he's saying is spot on. We have to get right on this. This, you know, it's sad. We sometimes, as a society, we focus on things that, frankly, we shouldn't even be focusing on. We got to get back to basics. The basic is this: the family. We have to get serious. And also we have to form our children properly. You know, you don't just magically get married. You know, people who get married, it's like turning on a light. You know, a person, you're formed properly. That begins in the family. People who 9 times out of 10 who come from families that have that type of formation, they do well in marriage.
That means you don't let the public school education establishment form your children. You form your children.
Or Hollywood.
I think about what we always talk about the racism. Look at what these white liberals, yes, mostly women, by the way, white liberal women do to black people while they point the finger at everybody else and call everybody else racist. Look at what they do in the inner city, and this ties into what Joe said about Planned Parenthood. They trap these kids in these public schools. You can't even call them schools. You really can't call them schools. There's no way you could demonstrate that this is an educational institution. Okay, let's take the city of Newark. They ram sexual liberation down their throat, which is the only thing these kids pay attention to, because there's no discipline in these schools. They're not teaching the other subject, except that sexual liberation. Teach them how to use a condom, Johnny, and teach a young girl how to use her contraception, okay? And what? They trap these kids in these inner city schools. They don't allow for any competition. They indoctrinate them and basically convince them to go out and have sex at 15, 16, 17 years old. And guess what happens when their contraception fails? Planned Parenthood's right down the block. They'll kill your black baby for you, or they'll kill your brown baby for you. It's so racist. It's so racist, and it's being perpetrated by the very same people that love to point the finger at everybody else and call them racist. That's demonstrable racism right there.
And Kanye's calling it out. You see, this is the thing. Again, he is a black man, and he is calling it out. And a lot of what he's saying right there, actually all of what he's saying is spot on. People should listen. People should listen.
Yep.
You know, our priorities are out of whack. Our priorities, I want my kids to go to heaven. That's my first priority. That's my priority for my wife, and that's her priority for me.
Wow, you're a countercultural
No,
guy.
but I mean, that's
that's
just
the truth.
The truth. I mean, that's what it's about. Your kid getting into Harvard, if your kid gets into Harvard and he loses his soul, what good is it?
What good is it?
What good is it?
Well,
you have
Jesus
to
said
form
that.
your kid, and that begins in the family, and it doesn't just happen. As we all come from families, it's a lifelong job to be a father and a mother. Forever. You're always a father and a mother to your kid. And frankly, our society doesn't value it anymore. It doesn't value marriage. It throws marriage out, and God knows we've thrown God out of marriage, and frankly, that's why our marriages are failing.
Well, that's why I think a guy like Kanye West, who has a tremendous following in the African American community, among young people in particular, that I'm not being cheeky here. I worry for his safety. You see, there's threats to the establishment, and then there's threats to the establishment. Keeping black people in chains, particularly the sexually liberated chains, okay, and keeping their families destroyed, which means they don't really have any families, okay, is what the oligarchs need. Kanye West comes along, who has a tremendous amount of influence, okay, and says, all he's got to do is start telling these young kids, oh, stop contracepting, all right, have babies, get married, have babies, okay, don't kill your babies, and when you have those babies, raise those babies, okay, into good adults. That's a threat. That's a threat to a lot of the people out there, because they need all families to be destroyed. See, families are, when we say they're the building block of society, families are a society. And when you have strong individual societies known as families, you know who has less power? The state. You know who else has less power? Corporations. Because the guy who's got 8 kids goes into his boss every 6 months and says, I need a raise. And guess what? He gets it, okay? Because there's no other workers. You understand? I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But the thing is, see, families are a pain in the ass to the establishment, both in the corporate world and in the world of government. They don't want strong families. They do everything why do you think all these corporations are woke now? Why do they all have rainbow flags? They're telling you the type of citizen that they want to create, or they want to help to create, one who doesn't care about what happens to them outside of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And as long as they keep providing that for these people, okay, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, they get the kind of society they want. Stupefied, oversexed kids who will keep voting for them. That's what they want. And you're at the front line with Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And we're way into the breach. And we're live right now on Facebook and on YouTube across many different platforms. We want to welcome you all. Please, we're really looking to build up our YouTube audience in particular. So if you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're not watching on YouTube, after the show, not now, go on YouTube, go on the front line with Joe, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell. We'd really appreciate it. And we thank you, as always, for all of your support. So yeah, let's applaud Kanye. Let's pray for 2 things. His message keeps getting out there, and he converts to the Catholic Church. That would really put a weed up their butt.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the legacy media falling silent on the Biden family scandal. As we all know, the New York Post published a blockbuster story this past week, complete with emails, documents, and photographs detailing the efforts of the Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's son to sell his father's influence to foreign oligarchs, with an interest to sway America's foreign policy to support their own business efforts. As a result of the impact of the scandal, social media giants Facebook and Twitter moved to throttle and even outright ban circulation of the New York Post story. The actions of Facebook and Twitter represent nothing less than a brazen attempt by corrupt big tech partisans who intend to steal the election from the American people. Let me read that again. Their actions intend to steal the election from the American people. There's no need to speculate on why they did this. There is no justification for safety or public interest, No one's life was put at risk by this information. They took these actions for blatant partisan reasons. They want Joe Biden to win. There's no other way to look at it. And this is utter and absolute scandal.
Well, remember like back in the day, you hear stories like in movies, right? Or you hear stories about like gangsters, like in one gangster says to the other, says, "Oh, I got the call. I gotta go see the boss and I'm in a lot of trouble." And he might get one of these. Okay, Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz just made the phone call to Silicon Valley, to Zuckerberg and Dorsey in particular, and he said, "You need to come in front of Congress. You're going to have to show how you could justify this action when everything you did to Donald Trump, that was all full of innuendo and straight up lies, all unnamed sources, and you had no problem sharing that and letting other people share that on your social media platform." And now the New York Post, which is the fourth largest newspaper in America, and the oldest, because it's 200 years old, founded by Alexander Hamilton, okay? Now all of a sudden you're going to fact check the reporters?
Facebook is going to fact check the United States government. This is being investigated by the United States government. Come on. You have to run the story. I'll be truthful with you. The media has zero credibility. It's over. And I got news for you. Know what's going to nail their coffin shut? If Donald Trump wins this election, these bogus polls, they might as well, including Fox, just shut down. Enemy of the American people.
Now the polls are. You see, see how the polls are trying to dissuade people from voting or dissuade people from putting in money? Okay, it's all BS. First of all, don't look at the national polls, because national polls don't mean anything. Here's a flash to Hillary Clinton. National polls don't mean anything. Go ask her. She won the national vote, the popular vote, by 3 million votes. Go ask her. It means squat under our constitutional system. The Electoral College is all that matters. And even those polls in those individual swing states, the battleground states, are all being skewed. Dr. Steve Hurley pointed this out, and many others are pointing it out, exactly how they're weighting these polls. Don't let them lie to you. The same way the same way they're trying to manipulate information, they're trying to manipulate these polls. And they're just not true. Look at, Joe just showed a video while I was working with our producer, Jonathan Ross, trying to get all this up and running tonight. Joe was showing a video in California. Tell them, Joe.
Yeah, basically they were showing, I was in Newport Beach, California. They had a motorcade. The whole street was lined with Trump supporters. This is California. California. I mean, this is where, I'll be truthfully, if Joe Biden is declared the winner, I can't logically understand how it's possible. Because this is, you would have thought, to be honest with you, it would look like pictures of, when Kennedy was killed.
Lining
the streets as he's driving through, waving flags. California.
They don't want you to believe your own eyes when it comes to this. Joe Biden has had 84 people at his rallies. You can't really call them rallies because he had 84 people. In the same amount of time that Joe Biden had 84 people, Donald Trump has had 250,000 people in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, in Wisconsin, in Florida, Arizona, Las Vegas, New Mexico. Okay, Trump thinks he's going to win Vegas and New Mexico. He lost them both the last time. Minnesota. Okay, don't let them lie to you. Find out whatever you have to do to make sure you drop your ballot. In New Jersey, we have to bring our ballots either to the polling place on Election Day. Okay, I didn't ask for a mail-in ballot, but they gave me one. But I could bring it there and hand it to a person. Okay, or I could put it in a drop box. Here, they have drop boxes all over the county. I'm going to make sure I do that. There's about 2 weeks left for the election. I'm going to take care of that tomorrow with my wife, fill out our ballots, and I'm going to go and drop them. And that's New Jersey. New Jersey's going to go for Joe Biden. We already know that. But I want my vote counted in the popular vote. You all have to go and do the same thing. Not just in Muskegon County and not just in some of these other, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Many of these counties, not just there, all over the country, we all have to make sure we go vote because they're trying to disenfranchise you while they accuse the other side of being the ones who want to disenfranchise you, which is the opposite of the truth.
Scholars of the law have said this in the past. They basically warned that censoring the press would endanger the survival and freedom of the democracy in America. Big tech, led by Facebook and Twitter, have officially declared war on the American people, in my view. They're unequivocally proclaiming that they're basically not a platform. They're basically publishers. They're basically censoring data. And this, my friends, is dangerous. It is dangerous, and they're going to get called to the mat this week.
I want to see them get hammered. I want to see Zuckerberg get hammered, and that Joe calls him a mutant. That mutant Jack Dorsey. How that guy ever earned billions of dollars, I have no idea. Okay, Bill DiBenedetto's in the chat room. Hi, Bill. How are you? He said, very sad and surprised to find out how many of the people from my Catholic church in Bradley Beach are voting for Biden, and these are nice people. Look, Bill, we all know Catholics that are voting for Biden, all right, many of whom are nice people. I think they're misguided. If they understand the position on abortion and understand how intrinsically evil it is, and it's not equal to the environment and to immigration and everything else, then they're misguided. Or they lack information. Or they never saw a picture of a butchered child after an abortion. We have to pray for these people. Okay, we could agree with Democrats on a lot. You know who else agrees with Democrats on a lot? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. He's picked up a lot of their issues when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to trade, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to wages. Okay, he's picked up a lot of Democrat issues. Okay, so Democrats could talk to him, but on abortion is the preeminent issue. We have to pray for these people that are going to vote for Biden, because you will have abortion on demand as the law of the land. That means Arkansas and Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi. The law of the land up to the moment of birth. The New York law, all right, that template will be what is imposed on the entire country if Biden gets elected. Now, if any Catholic thinks it's A-okay to vote for that, I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Joe, what do we got? One more segment? No, that's a big fail, though.
But I just want to, make one more point.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, it's okay. Basically, in addition to Facebook and Twitter, because they weren't the only ones, 6 hours after the story basically came out, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, they all did not mention it. None of them mentioned it. Like, nobody has talked about this. And the ones that did have given it, 30 seconds. This is Benghazi all over again. The press is dead.
Right.
It is a propaganda machine for the Democratic Party.
This is the press. Social media is the new press, because it's the only thing that's independent. All right, no filters. Okay, well, except the fact that we're dealing with YouTube and Facebook, and Twitter, which hopefully the government's going to deal with them and force them to either be an open platform or break their asses up once and for all. Okay, this is the press, the Federalist. Okay, Breitbart, LifeSite News. Okay, My Church's Crusade Channel and others. Michael Voris, Church Militant. This is where we get our news from. It's all backed up. Using Michael Voris as an example, he's a journalist, 3-time Emmy winner. Michael Voris knows the rules, the standards of journalism. Okay, when I hear a story on Church Militant, that's a news story, I know it's true. I know it's been verified because it's being told to me by an Emmy-winning reporter like Michael Voris. We are the new media, and the old media can't stand that. And they can't stand the fact that, we mentioned Chris Cuomo earlier and Don Lemon. Okay. Please, it's right. They can't stand the fact that people don't watch them. If anything, people watch them only to laugh at them because they're not serious people. Okay? So this is the new media. Even Fox News. I don't have to watch Fox News. I can watch Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson, who I find to be worthy of my time. Okay? I can watch them both. They'll get fired, but I can watch them both on YouTube. And when they get fired from Fox News, I'm sure they'll find other outlets and I'll be able to watch them there. I don't have to watch Fox News. Fox News is no bargain. This is the new media. We need to nurture social media, conservative and yes, Catholic, all right? In general, let's say people of goodwill. That's the media we need to listen to, okay? Where when somebody says something, at least they back it up with facts. It's not just bloviating like you get from people like disgraziad Chris Cuomo. Anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. I think we have one story left?
Yeah, one left.
Yeah, so listen, Biden's full of ridiculousness that comes out of his mouth. So here's more.
Well, basically, Biden had a town hall on ABC with George Stephanopoulos this week. And I just want to go through some of the outlandish things he had to say, because there were a number of them.
Now, if you had Wendy's recently, okay, just hold on to the Baconator that's sitting in your stomach right now, because this is Biden. This is what Biden does when he speaks. You got to go like this. Ooh. Like if I was a supporter of Biden, every time I'd watch him, I'd go like this. Ooh, please don't say it. No, don't say it. And then he says it, and I go, damn it. He went ahead and said it anyway. There's something wrong with this guy. Go ahead, Joe.
First thing I want to bring out, he's basically said, and there was a lot on social media on it. I posted a number of things on this as well. He basically said 8-year-olds should be allowed to decide if they're transgender. He affirmed a mother, basically. He said, in so many words, we shouldn't discriminate against that child who makes that decision to be a transgender individual.
Has nothing to do with the mother, though. Has nothing to do with the mother.
I'll stop right there. And people, this is insanity. This is insanity, and I plead with all people of goodwill. How could you be for that? Seriously, an 8-year-old? I mean, there is also studies. If you go on our Facebook page, I posted a number of studies from Johns Hopkins, from Oxford, from the American Pediatrician Association, that basically do not back that position. This is pure ideology.
Right.
This is not science. They always say it's the science, it's the science. Well, this is not science. It's not backed by doctors. Also, keep this in mind. This position is the position of the Teachers Union of America. Every public school in America would support that line right now. That is a disgrace. That is a disgrace that you're going to have an adult who's going to sit behind a desk and basically affirm an 8-year-old who wants to change their sex, sometimes by taking medication, sometimes by having surgery.
Right.
That is nothing short of insanity.
It's abuse.
It is experimentation, is what it is.
Right.
And that is a disgrace.
David's in the chat room. He said, what if a child wants to be a cat? Now, I know you might be joking a little bit, David. My wife tells a story that she heard from somebody else that when she was, it was from a professor who, when going around a classroom, this is within the last couple of years, and the professor was asking everybody how they would prefer to be referred to, or how they would want to be like, how do I refer to you? And he said, one girl said, and yes, she was a girl, she wants to be called furry.
What the hell is that?
Okay, now that's true. So now you mentioned cats, and cats are furry, right? Because she wears a tail. She adds a tail. Like, I don't know how you do that. Like, you put on a belt and you have a tail coming out of it. But she has a tail because human beings don't have tails, so she had to actually put it on like a Halloween costume. And she has a tail that drags from the back of her pants, okay? And she wants to be called furry.
That's just...
And we're supposed to sit here. We are the bigots when we say to this young girl, okay, you need help, and I'm here to help you. I'm here to pray for you. I'll even pay for your psychologist or your psychiatrist and or your drugs. But there is something wrong with you if you want to be called furry, young lady. Okay? But remember what I just did. Remember what I just did. I called her young lady. She would say I misgendered her, and that, by the way, is an act of violence, according to them. So, and that's a whole other conversation about how if you act violently because you call a he a she, because he is he, but they want to be called a she, that's an act of violence. That means they can hit you over the head with a baseball bat because you committed violence against them and they were just simply defending themselves. I'm not being far-fetched. These people are crazy. But yeah, so if your kid wants to be a cat, I guess your kid could be a cat because this girl wanted to be furry.
And by the way, that's what your vote is going to. You see, this is where I think there's certain things that, like, they're basically disqualifiers. Abortion should be a disqualifier. This, to me, is a disqualifier. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I will never, ever, ever say that is okay.
Right.
Ever. And to be honest with you, if you're an adult and you make that decision, I think you're making a bad one.
You're making an evil one.
But to impose that on a child, that is just straight up and down child abuse.
Right.
I am sorry, and I will never, ever say otherwise. And to say that publicly and to be a part of your platform just shows you how lost our culture is, because there are many people that do support that. This is actually, we're behind. There's many countries that have, this has been going on for quite some time. We have a lot of people in the chat room from Canada. This has been going on in Canada for some time. I read about it all the time in LifeSite News.
Right.
This is a disgrace.
And most people, remember something, we're never told what really most people think, because most people don't get a chance to vote on this stuff. Remember something, the American people never voted for abortion. That was imposed on us. The American people never voted for gay marriage. Oh, no, they did. And when they did in individual states, gay marriage was voted down. Even in liberal California, it was voted down. So that was imposed on us. All this transgenderism, this is all being imposed on us. We don't vote for this. They sneak it into bills, into legislation. They do it through the school boards. They do it through the public sector unions, because you can't do anything about them. And then they get friendly judges that take their back. This is a whole system that needs to come burning down. Burning down. Trump did one thing since the time he got elected, and it was the reason why Joe and I voted for him. He's putting the judges in place that will help to burn down this system.
And that's why they hate him.
That's why they hate him.
One of the drivers.
You're not getting through. You're not getting through. You're not going to force me to participate in a gay wedding with a conservative judge. You will with a liberal activist judge like Kagan and Sotomayor and Breyer, but you're not, let's say for argument's sake, if you have a conservative judge. A conservative judge is going to say, I don't have to participate in anything I find morally objectionable. Okay? None. I don't have to. And that's how we put the brakes on these people, while we pray to God to give us the strength to fight the fight in the culture that we're supposed to be waging against them. Stop being on the defensive. We had an interview with Tim Gordon. He wrote Rules for Retrogrades with his brother David. One of their rules is stop playing defense. Go on offense. You got to tell people. You think an 8-year-old kid, an 8-year-old boy can self-identify as a girl, and you're going to say that there's something that you think clearly, or you think that that's acceptable in any way? Go on the offense against them. Tell them you support baby killing. Well, no, I know you said you're pro-choice, but you support slaughtering babies in the womb. Go on the offense. That's what we need to do. That's what we're doing here at the front line with Joe and Joe. We're going on the offense. We're attacking their ideas because their ideas, quite frankly, suck.
He also said police should shoot criminals in the leg. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
This is the president.
Because I got news for you. The criminals aren't looking to shoot the police in the leg. Ridiculous. He also said Trump didn't do anything to help the economy during the coronavirus pandemic. Actually, Trump signed the largest economic stimulus in American history and extended that with a paycheck protection program as well as an executive order on expanded unemployment benefits.
Sounds like he did help some people.
Sorry.
That's the way it is.
Utter and absolute lie. Another one of his gems. He said, give all first-time home buyers $15,000. By the way, there are 2 million first-time home buyers per year. That little cost would be $30 billion a year. Where are we getting that money? I want to stop right there. He says they're only going to tax people over $400,000 a year.
Lie.
Utter and absolute lie. Where are you coming up with this money? They're going to tax everybody. Everybody. Every time I hear Democrats say that, I laugh. I laugh to myself. That is such a lie. You're going to give people $15,000, first-time home buyers. Where are you getting that money from? You don't do anything. The government doesn't make anything.
Just takes.
It takes from others, and they're not just going to take from the 1%. That is such a lie. He also said that the Boilermakers Union endorsed him in Pennsylvania.
It's a lie.
They endorsed Donald Trump.
How can you? But I don't understand how people do. I mean, Joe, that's a blatant one. Oh, the Boilermakers, they endorsed me. Actually, hang on. Let me just go and Google that real quick. No, they endorsed Donald Trump. So what do you got to say about that? No, you're a liar, and we'll do push-ups right now. Fatso. Isn't that what he said to that guy? He called the guy Fatso, and he says, "I'll do push-ups in Iowa." He says, "I'll do push-ups with you right now." He got in the guy's face. So is that what he's going to say when somebody says, "No, actually, Mr. Vice President, the Boilermakers they endorsed Trump. They didn't endorse you." Oh, come on, man! I think it was Ann said in the chat room. Oh, come on, man!
I actually think he's schizophrenic because these type of statements. I mean, that is just dude. Where are you coming up with that? Where are you coming up with that? And this leads me to my final point. Stephanopoulos didn't call him on anything. If you juxtapose what Trump went through with that woman,
Savannah Guthrie,
versus what Stephanopoulos did, he didn't challenge him on anything. He didn't even bring up the fact that his son is in the news and Facebook and Twitter are going to the Senate this week. They didn't even have one question. This is where, like I said, sorry press, sorry Wallace, who thinks he's so serious on Fox News, garbage, Stephanopoulos, all of you.
When are Republicans going to, by the way, when are Republicans going to stop agreeing to liberal moderators in any of these things? When are Republicans going to turn around and say, I'll tell you what, Trump will go with a liberal moderator, but Biden's got to go with a real conservative. Like, Biden's got to go have a town hall with Tucker Carlson. Or Biden's got to have a town hall. He would get wrecked. Whereas,
oh my gosh.
let Chris Cuomo, who's obviously a partisan, let him go and interview Donald Trump in a town hall.
Okay.
Go ahead. Trump will eat his lunch. In the meantime, Tucker Carlson will eat Biden's lunch, and Biden will go down about 18 points in the polls. Why don't Republicans demand this? And if the left says no, say, fine, Trump's just going to go out there and keep rallying 25, 30,000 people at a time while Biden has a conversation with 3 people while he's wearing a mask that's this big.
You get Ben Shapiro.
Right.
Or you get Levin.
Oh, can you imagine?
He'll be like,
let me ask you, Mr. Vice President. What do you mean you're going to raise taxes? Get out of here. But that's what it is. And the Republicans keep agreeing to this time and time again. The answer's no. And if the libs don't want to go for it, tell them then. Listen, we always use the line from Rocky around here, okay? If the libs don't like it, then screw you, creepo.
There it is.
Screw you, creepo. Then we're not going to debate with you. We're not going to sit down at your stupid town halls. We want, if you want Trump to go to an ABC town hall, then Biden goes to a Fox News town hall, and it ain't Chris Wallace that's asking him the questions.
And Bob Dole actually called them on it. Bob Dole, who's like 100, he basically tweeted this week, he said the people on the election committee, even the Republicans, are not supporting Donald Trump. You know what it is? It's just the deep state, and they're all elitists. You see, there is an oligarchy in this country. There is, people.
And throughout the world.
Without a question. I read this years ago. They basically was in Fortune magazine. They were basically comparing the oligarchy of America to Russia. They said in Russia there's probably about 365 people that run the country. And in America it's 365,000. But they run the country. And we're here to vote for whoever they choose to put up on the Democratic side and the Republican side. Like Jeb Bush, when he was supposed to be the next heir apparent. And Donald Trump basically submarined them. And they are not having it. It comes down to power. Power is not given away, it's taken. And that's why they hate Donald Trump, and that's why they hate you. They hate you. Like Joe Biden this week, he was questioned on his judges. One guy did ask him a question. And what he said, don't the American people deserve to know? No, he had to stop himself. You could Google it. He'll say, he was like, they don't deserve, and he stopped himself. What do you mean I don't deserve to know? I hired you. You've been in the office for 47 years. I deserve to know everything. This isn't a monarchy. It's a joke. It is a joke.
And that's why on Election Day, we have to not only vote Trump, we have to expand the Senate, and we also have to get that gavel out of Pelosi's hand. If we're going to have any time to breathe so that we could do God's will in America, where we don't have the left and their evil master who's rotting in hell, breathing down our necks, we have to give ourselves a reprieve. God will give that to us. Just like, and I don't care who doesn't like this statement, just as God used Constantine, a very, very flawed man, an extremely flawed man, but the Edict of Milan was issued by Constantine. And the Catholic Church was recognized in the Roman Empire because of Constantine. Okay? God used Constantine. God is using Donald Trump. But if we don't step up, if we don't do what we are supposed to do in this culture war, in this spiritual battle, then we can't expect that America's ever going to be saved. Because if we don't ask Jesus Christ to save it, it ain't going to be saved. You could get 10 Donald Trumps in a row. It won't matter. We need to have a bit of a break, a little breathing room, which Donald Trump will give us, okay? And then we need to step up from there. Joe and I have a long task in front of us that goes well beyond November 3rd to try to convince people that we need to evangelize this culture, to get back to the moral center, to get back to the natural law, to fight against Hollywood, fight against the advertising industry, fight against big media, fight against the academia, fight against them all, and win the culture back for Christ. It's the only way this country is going to be saved. And if you don't do it, this country is going to just keep going down. It starts on Election Day. We have to beat them back. And in order to do that, in our humble opinion, that means going out and voting for Donald Trump. And right down the ticket. All the way down the ticket. Just vote Republican all the way down so we take power away from these leftist, insane people.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, that's it.
That about says it all.
Right. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty good conversation.
I do too.
A lot of comments in the chat room. There's hundreds of comments in the chat room across social media. Again, we want to thank you all for supporting us. This wonderful equipment we have is because of all of you, because of your prayers, because of your financial support. We do have an ongoing GoFundMe campaign at Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You can find us on GoFundMe and drop in a couple bucks if you like. We're just going to keep moving it forward. We're going to keep telling the truth. We're going to keep going on the Crusade channel. We would encourage you to try out the free 30-day subscription trial so you could see what they're all about. We think you'll love it. You could also see Mike Church, who has a 3 or 4 hour radio show every morning on YouTube Live every morning from 7 to 11 Eastern Time. Okay, we think you'll love it, and all the other programming there. So we absolutely encourage you to do that. Subscribe and like to Holy Faith Media also. Jonathan Ross, our producer, has done a phenomenal job for us, and many others. He's got a lot of others. He's got Robert Singenis and other people on Holy Faith Media that you're going to love. Okay, great Catholic content. Okay, so again, we just want to say thank you. Thanks for sticking around. And until next week, where we'll have a whole new host of issues to talk about and a whole bunch of topics to talk about, keep in mind that our conversation is your conversation. And that conversation, it's going on everywhere. We'll see you next week.